Recursion. Okay, I know. It's one of those words in programming that can sound a little intimidating, right? Like it's some kind of secret handshake for senior developers. But what if I told you it's actually a super elegant and honestly a more natural way of thinking about certain problems? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify it step by step. You've probably seen this classic programmer joke floating around. And it's funny because it perfectly captures that feeling of getting stuck in a loop, that circular logic that makes recursion feel so weird at first. It seems like a riddle with no answer, but I promise you, by the end of this, we're going to unravel it completely. All right, to get our heads around this, let's forget about code entirely for a second. Just imagine this. You have to find a key. Simple enough. The catch? It's hidden somewhere inside a set of Russian nesting dolls. You know, those boxes inside of boxes inside of boxes. So you open the first big box, and all you see are more boxes. What's your strategy here? How do you find that key? So this little thought experiment with the boxes, it's actually a fantastic way to understand a fundamental choice we make in programming all the time. You have a task that repeats, so how do you tackle it? Let's break down two very different ways to find that key. This slide lays it out perfectly. On the left, we have what I'm calling the pile method. This is iteration, using loops. You'd basically take every single box out, make one giant pile, and then go through them one by one until you find the key. Now look at the right. This is our box method, and this is recursion. The instructions are way simpler, aren't they? Just look through the box you're holding. If you find another box inside, just apply this exact same strategy to the new box. That's it. And that box method, that simple idea of applying the same strategy to a smaller piece of the problem, well, that's the heart and soul of recursion. It's a programming technique where a function solves a problem by calling itself to chip away at smaller, bite-sized versions of that exact same problem. But, and this is a huge but, for this whole idea to actually work without, going on forever, every single recursive function has to play by two absolutely essential non-negotiable rules. These are the safety rails that keep it from running wild. Rule number one, and this is the most important one, you must have a base case. Think of this as the exit strategy. It's the condition that tells the function, okay, stop, we're done here. In our box analogy, the base cases are pretty clear. You either find the key, hooray, or you open a box and it's empty. In either case, the search in that box is over. And following right behind that is rule number two, the recursive case. This is the part where the magic happens, where the function actually calls itself. But here's the crucial detail. It has to call itself with an input that gets it one step closer to that base case. We're not just spinning our wheels. With every call, we're making the problem smaller and smaller, heading straight for that finish line. Let's look at a super simple countdown to see this in action. The recursive case is when the function prints the current number, then calls itself with a number that's one smaller. The base case, that's when the number gets to 0. Each call, from 3 to 2 to 1, is a clear step toward that stopping point. Once it hits 0, the chain reaction stops. Okay, so wait a second. If a function keeps calling itself over and over, how does the computer not get totally lost? How does countdown 3 remember what it was doing after countdown 2 finishes? Well, the secret lies in a fascinating part of your computer's memory called the call stack. The best way to picture the call stack is to think of a stack of books, or maybe plates at a cafeteria. You can only put a new one on the very top, and you can only take one off from the very top. The last one you put on is always the first one you take off. This is what we call a last in, first out, or LIFO system. So let's trace this with a classic example, factorial. When main calls factorial 3, a little workspace for factorial 3 gets placed or pushed onto our stack. But factorial 3 can't finish it. It needs to call factorial 2. So a new workspace for factorial 2 gets stacked right on top. Then it calls factorial 1, which gets stacked on top of that. Each function just waits, paused, for the one above it to finish its job. This stacking keeps going until, finally, the function at the very top of the stack hits its base case. Right here, factorial of 1 doesn't need to call itself anymore. It just knows the answer is 1. This is the turning point. Now the whole process can start to unwind. And here comes the satisfying part. Factorial 1 is done, so it gets popped off the stack, handing its answer, the number 1, back down to factorial 2. Now factorial 2 can finally finish its math, and it gets popped off, handing its answer down to factorial 3. This waterfall continues all the way down until the stack is empty and our original function has the final answer. So let's circle all the way back to our pile method from the beginning. With Recursion, we don't need to build that pile of boxes ourselves. The call stack is the pile. It's the computer's own memory system for keeping track of all those nested tasks for us. Pretty cool, right? All right, so now we get the mechanics. The big practical question becomes, when should you actually choose Recursion over a good old-fashioned loop? Let's break down the trade-offs. So here's the deal. Recursive code is often way more concise, cleaner, and some would say more elegant. It can map more directly to the way you think about a problem. But that elegance has a price. Every one of those function calls on the stack takes up a little bit of memory and adds a tiny bit of performance overhead. Loops, on the other hand, are generally faster and use less memory, but for really complex problems, they can get messy and harder to read. You know, when you start writing recursive functions, you have to adopt something called the recursive leap of faith. You really don't have to trace every single call down and back up in your head. That'll drive you crazy. If you can prove that your base case is correct, and you know that your recursive step is making progress, you just have to trust that the computer will handle all the messy details on the call stack for you. Now, with all this power comes one major danger, a big gotcha. And it's a term you have almost certainly heard before, even if you weren't sure what it meant in this context. Stack Overflow. Yup, it's not just a lifesaver of a website. It is a very real runtime error. It's what happens when your recursion goes too deep. Maybe your base case is wrong, or maybe it's missing entirely. You just keep piling functions onto the call stack until you literally run out of space. The stack of books gets too high and just topples right over. So, given that risk, when does recursion really shine? Well, it has some genuine superpowers for certain types of problems. Anytime you're dealing with hierarchical data, like a file system, folders inside folders, recursion is a natural fit. For powerful divide and conquer algorithms, or for solving complex mazes and puzzles like Sudoku, recursion is often the most elegant solution by far. And just one last cool detail, some modern programming languages are actually smart enough to optimize a special kind of recursion called tail recursion. This is where the compiler, behind the scenes, can rewrite your elegant recursive function to be just as fast and memory efficient as a simple loop. It's like getting the best of both worlds. You know, someone once said that learning recursion feels a bit like learning to navigate in space. It's vast, a little mysterious at first, but it opens up a universe of possibilities. Hopefully, we've given you a map to start that journey. So the real question now is, what amazing problems are you going to solve with it?